You're going to sell the company. My name is Eli Crawford. I'm 30 years old, and I built CenturyLoop data from nothing. That Sunday dinner in Charlotte should have been routine. Instead, it was the moment everything broke. My dad, Ronald, stood at the head of our dining room table like he was still commanding troops. Air Force colonel for 28 years. Even retired, he expected orders to be followed without question. My mom, Lorraine, sat quietly cutting her roast beef into perfect squares. My brother Tyler lounged in his chair, scrolling through his phone like he wasn't the reason we were all there. Tyler has real potential, Dad continued. Don't be selfish. I set down my fork. My answer is no. The room went silent except for the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. Dad's jaw tightened. Tyler finally looked up from his screen, waiting to see which way this would go. I'd built CenturyLoop from a beat-up laptop in a shared apartment 5 years ago. Started with penetration testing for small businesses, grew into cybersecurity consulting for state agencies and logistics firms. Never asked my family for a dime. Not during college when I lived on ramen and energy drinks. Not when I maxed out 3 credit cards to afford server space. Not even when I skipped meals for 6 months to land my first government contract. Tyler, on the other hand, had burned through other people's money on electric scooters, crypto tokens, and a travel app that never launched. Each failure came with the same excuse. Bad timing, wrong market, investors who didn't understand his vision. This is different, Tyler said, finally speaking. The artificial intelligence market is exploding. I just need initial funding to build the prototype. I'd heard variations of this speech 4 times in 3 years. Different buzzwords, same ending. I'm not selling my company to fund another one of your experiments, I said. Dad's face flushed red. That company exists because of the values we instilled in you. Family comes first. Family didn't help me build it. Watch your tone, boy. I was 30 years old. I employed 17 people. I had contracts with the North Carolina Department of Transportation and 3 Fortune 500 companies. But in this house, I was still boy. Mom cleared her throat. Maybe we could discuss this without raising voices. There's nothing to discuss, I said. CenturyLoop isn't for sale. Dad leaned forward, his knuckles white against the table. You'll regret this attitude. I should have left then. Should have seen the warning signs in his clenched fists and narrow eyes. Instead, I stayed seated, thinking family dinner might still be salvageable. I was wrong. Growing up, Dad ran our house like a military base. Chores had deadlines. Grades had consequences. Tyler and I learned early that questioning orders earned punishment detail. But Tyler was different. Charming, confident, always had a way of talking himself out of trouble. When he crashed Dad's truck at 17, he convinced him it was a learning experience. When he dropped out of college junior year, he called it pursuing entrepreneurial opportunities. Dad bought every excuse. I was the opposite. Quiet, methodical, afraid to disappoint. Graduated summa cum laude from North Carolina State with a computer science degree. Spent summers working IT support while Tyler backpacked through Europe on Dad's credit card. After college, I moved to a cramped apartment in downtown Charlotte and started freelancing. Tyler moved back home and announced he was launching a food delivery startup. Dad converted the garage into Tyler's headquarters and bragged to neighbors about his entrepreneur son. CenturyLoop started accidentally. A client's system got breached during my security audit. Instead of just identifying vulnerabilities, I built custom monitoring software to prevent future attacks. Word spread. More contracts followed. Within 2 years, I'd outgrown my apartment and rented office space near the university. Tyler's food delivery app lasted 6 months. Then came the electric scooter rental business that never got past the business plan. Then cryptocurrency trading that lost $12,000 in 3 weeks. Each failure was met with sympathy and encouragement to try again. Meanwhile, I hired my first employees, landed state contracts, and started getting featured in local business magazines. Dad never mentioned those articles, but he kept Tyler's failed business plans in a folder on his desk, calling them proof of innovative thinking. The warning signs started last Christmas. Tyler cornered me after dinner, explaining his latest idea. Artificial intelligence software for restaurants. He needed $200,000 for development and 6 months to build a prototype. Just think about it, he said. We could be partners. I told him I'd consider it, but privately, I'd already decided. Tyler's track record spoke for itself. Then came the phone calls. Dad asking about CenturyLoop's valuation. Mom wondering if I was thinking about Tyler's future. Casual questions that felt like reconnaissance. 2 weeks ago, Tyler showed up at my office unannounced. He'd researched my client list, estimated my revenue, and calculated exactly how much I could afford to invest in his vision. "You're sitting on millions," he said. "I'm family. This should be automatic." When I explained that CenturyLoop's value was tied up in contracts, equipment, and employee salaries, he accused me of making excuses. "Dad's right," Tyler said as he left. "You've changed." That should have been my final warning. Family loyalty was becoming a weapon, and I was the target. The slap echoed through the dining room like a gunshot. I sat there tasting blood from my split lip, while Dad stood over me with his hand still raised. Mom gasped and dropped her fork. Tyler didn't move, didn't speak, just watched like this was entertainment. "You'll regret this, boy," Dad said. The pain wasn't what shocked me. It was the calculation in his eyes. He'd hit me to make a point, to reassert control, to remind me who was supposed to be in charge. This wasn't anger. This was strategy. I wiped my mouth with my napkin, folded it neatly, and stood up. "I won't be back," I said. "Eli, please," Mom started, but I was already walking toward the door. "Typical," Tyler called after me. "Always the victim." I drove home in silence, my jaw throbbing with each heartbeat. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the clarity settling in my mind. This wasn't about Tyler's startup or family loyalty. This was about power and control, and the assumption that I owed them something simply because we shared blood. Back in my apartment, I sat at my kitchen table and opened my laptop. The same laptop where I'd written CenturyLoop's first lines of code 5 years ago. I'd built something real, something valuable, something mine, and they wanted to take it away to fund another one of Tyler's fantasies. I made 3 phone calls that night. First to my attorney, instructing him to update my emergency contacts and beneficiary information. Second to my accountant, moving my savings to a new bank account with only my name. Third, to my business partner Jacob, asking him to schedule a meeting about our growth strategy. I didn't sleep. Instead, I spent hours going through old emails, looking for patterns I'd missed. Dad asking about CenturyLoop's client contracts, Mom inquiring about my retirement plans, Tyler researching cybersecurity market valuations. They'd been planning this for months. The Sunday dinner wasn't spontaneous. It was an ambush, carefully orchestrated to back me into a corner. Dad's military training at work, control the environment, eliminate escape routes, apply overwhelming pressure. But they'd made one critical mistake. They assumed I was still the kid who followed orders without question. They didn't understand that building CenturyLoop had changed me. Every failed pitch, every rejected proposal, every sleepless night debugging code had taught me to think strategically, to plan for contingencies, to protect what mattered. The next morning I called Jacob back. "Remember that acquisition offer from Nexora Labs?" I said. "The one we turned down 6 months ago?" "Yeah, 42 million, why?" "See if they're still interested." "Eli, that's a huge decision. Are you sure?" I touched my swollen lip and thought about Tyler's smirk, Mom's silence, Dad's raised hand. I've never been more certain of anything in my life. 3 days after the dinner, Dad showed up at my office. I was reviewing security protocols with my lead developer when my assistant knocked on the door. "Mr. Crawford is here to see you," she said. "He says it's important." Dad walked in wearing his dress uniform from some veterans event, medals gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Jacob excused himself, but I could tell he was uncomfortable leaving. "That's quite an operation you've got here," Dad said, scanning the servers humming in the corner, the dual monitors on each desk, the framed certificates hanging on the walls. "Impressive for someone so young." I didn't offer him a seat. What do you want? To apologize. He stepped closer, his voice softening into what I recognized as his negotiation tone. I was out of line Sunday night. Your mother's been on me about it all week. I waited. But my point stands, he continued. Tyler's idea has merit. Artificial intelligence is the future. With your technical background and his vision, you could build something revolutionary. By selling CenturyLoop. By thinking bigger. Family businesses are generational wealth. Look at the Waltons, the Kochs. They understood that individual success means nothing without legacy. Dad had done his homework. He'd researched CenturyLoop's contracts, estimated our revenue, probably pulled my credit report through one of his military contacts. This wasn't a casual visit. This was reconnaissance. I've already given you my answer, I said. His demeanor shifted. The apologetic father disappeared, replaced by the colonel who'd spent 3 decades getting his way through intimidation. Your mother's medical bills are getting expensive, he said. Diabetes medication, physical therapy for her hip. Insurance doesn't cover everything. Is that a threat? It's reality. Family takes care of family. Unless you think you're too important for that now. The manipulation was flawless. Make me the villain for protecting my business. Make Tyler the victim who deserved support. Make Mom's health my responsibility to solve. How much do you need? I asked. 200,000. Tyler's already found investors willing to match whatever we contribute. It's not charity, it's an investment. And if I refuse? Dad straightened his uniform jacket. Then I guess we'll know where your priorities really are. After he left, I called Mom directly. She answered on the first ring, her voice tight with anxiety. Eli, honey, I'm so sorry about Sunday. Your father shouldn't have. Mom, what medical bills? Silence. Then quietly. It's nothing serious, just routine expenses. Dad said insurance wasn't covering everything. Oh, that. She laughed nervously. You know how he exaggerates. I've got a new prescription that's expensive, but we're managing fine. How expensive? Honey, please don't worry about this. It's between your father and me. But I could hear the strain in her voice. Either she was lying to protect me, or Dad was lying to manipulate me. Both options made me angry. That evening, Tyler texted me. Dad told me about your conversation. I know this is awkward, but I really think we could make something special together. Can we grab coffee tomorrow? I stared at the message for 10 minutes before responding. I'm not interested in partnering with you. His reply came immediately. Fine, but don't blame me when Mom can't afford her medication. There it was, the real threat. Not physical violence this time, but emotional blackmail disguised as family obligation. They'd weaponized Mom's health, Tyler's future, and my guilt to force a decision I'd already made. I deleted Tyler's number from my phone and blocked Dad's calls. But the damage was done. They'd shown me exactly how far they were willing to go to get what they wanted. The question was, how far was I willing to go to stop them? The call came from my accountant at 9 a.m. Thursday morning. Eli, we need to talk, Marcus said. Someone's been making inquiries about CenturyLoop's financial records. I was halfway through my coffee when the words hit me. What kind of inquiries? Professional ones. They knew exactly which forms to request, which databases to search. This wasn't amateur hour. I sat down hard. Who was it? That's the problem. They used proper channels, had legitimate documentation, but something felt off. Can you come in this afternoon? Marcus had been handling my books since CenturyLoop's second year. Former IRS auditor, paranoid about privacy. The kind of guy who spotted irregularities from 3 states away. If he was worried, I should be terrified. His office smelled like stale coffee and anxiety. Marcus spread documents across his desk like evidence at a crime scene. Here's what happened, he said. Tuesday afternoon, someone contacted the State Business Registration Office requesting copies of CenturyLoop's incorporation papers. Wednesday morning, they pulled your tax filings from the county assessor. Yesterday, they requested client contract summaries from the Small Business Administration. Is that legal? If you know the right people and file the right paperwork, yes. Most of this information is technically public record, but accessing it requires specific knowledge and connections. I studied the request forms. Professional letterhead, official language, signatures from people I'd never heard of. But the requesting organization made my blood run cold. Crawford Consulting Solutions. Tyler doesn't have a consulting company, I said. He does now. Incorporated Monday morning. Listed address is your parents' house. The timeline was perfect. Sunday dinner, Monday incorporation, Tuesday through Thursday, systematic information gathering. Tyler hadn't come up with this plan overnight. He'd been preparing for weeks, maybe months. There's more, Marcus said. Someone contacted 3 of your major clients yesterday, claiming they were conducting a routine security audit on your behalf. Asked detailed questions about contract terms, payment schedules, renewal dates. Which clients? North Carolina Department of Transportation, Bramble Industries, and that logistics firm in Greensboro. All 3 called me asking if the audit was legitimate. My hands started shaking. Those 3 contracts represented 60% of CenturyLoop's revenue. If clients lost confidence in our security practices, we'd be finished within months. What did you tell them? That CenturyLoop doesn't conduct third-party audits without written authorization. But Eli, the damage might already be done. If they think your operations are compromised, I pulled out my phone and called Jacob. He answered immediately. We need to meet, I said. Emergency. What's wrong? Someone's trying to destroy the company. Jacob arrived at Marcus's office within 20 minutes, his face grim. I explained the situation while he took notes, occasionally swearing under his breath. This is industrial sabotage, he said finally. We need to contact the authorities. And tell them what? That my brother filed some paperwork and made some phone calls? That your family is systematically undermining our business relationships to force a sale. Marcus cleared his throat. There's one more thing. I got a call this morning from someone claiming to represent potential investors interested in acquiring CenturyLoop. They had detailed financial projections, client lists, even employee salary information. Information they couldn't have without inside access, Jacob added. Or a family member who knew exactly where to look, I said. The room went quiet. Outside, Charlotte's business district hummed with normal activity. People going to work, attending meetings, building careers. Inside, I was learning that my own family had declared war on everything I'd built. What do you want to do? Jacob asked. I thought about Tyler's smirk, Dad's calculated violence, Mom's nervous laughter about medical bills that might not even exist. I want to disappear, I said, before they can destroy anything else. The Nexora Labs acquisition offer was still on the table. I called their chief executive officer Friday morning and explained that circumstances had changed. Within 6 hours, I was sitting in a conference room in downtown Charlotte, reviewing terms with lawyers who specialized in hostile takeover defense. $42 million cash deal, 30-day close, said Patricia Hoffman, Nexora's lead counsel. But we need exclusive negotiating rights immediately. No competing offers, no information sharing with third parties. That works for me, I said. What about your business partner? I glanced at Jacob, who'd been unusually quiet during the meeting. We discussed it. He's on board. That was partially true. Jacob understood the situation but thought I was overreacting. Maybe we should try legal action first, he'd suggested. File restraining orders, cease and desist letters. Against my own family? I'd replied. You think that ends well for anyone? Now, signing the exclusivity agreement, I wondered if he was right. But Tyler's systematic assault on our client relationships had accelerated my timeline. Every day we waited was another opportunity for him to poison potential buyers against us. One more thing, Patricia said. Nexora requires complete confidentiality until the deal closes. No announcements, no discussions with employees, no notifications to family members. Perfect. The paperwork took 3 hours. Due diligence would require another week. But by Saturday morning, I had a binding letter of intent and a timeline that would have me out of Charlotte before Tyler realized what was happening. Step 1. Relocate immediately. I'd already researched Victoria, British Columbia. Close enough to major tech centers, far enough from North Carolina that surprise visits would be impossible. I could run CenturyLoop remotely during the transition period. Step 2. Reroute all communication. Every business call, every email, every contract negotiation would go through my attorney. No direct contact with family members, no opportunities for emotional manipulation. Step 3. Execute the sale and disappear. Sunday afternoon, I started packing. 5 years of life in Charlotte fit into 4 boxes and 2 suitcases. I'd never accumulated much stuff, never bought furniture worth keeping, never put down roots that couldn't be pulled up overnight. My phone buzzed constantly, Dad calling about family obligations, Mom texting about Sunday dinner plans, Tyler sending me articles about artificial intelligence startups that had sold for millions. I ignored them all. Monday morning, I met with my key employees individually. I couldn't explain the sale yet, but I could prepare them for transition. Whatever happens in the next few weeks, your jobs are secure, I told each of them. Nexora is interested in growing the team, not cutting it. Are you okay? Asked Sandra, my lead security analyst. You seem stressed. Just processing some changes. Tuesday, Tyler showed up at my apartment building. I watched from my window as he argued with the security guard, demanding access to my floor. After 20 minutes, he left a handwritten note with the doorman. The note said, I know you're mad, but this isn't just about us anymore. Dad's getting desperate. Call me. I threw it away without finishing. Wednesday, Marcus called with news that Crawford Consulting Solutions had filed paperwork requesting copies of CenturyLoop's client contracts from the state archives. They're not backing down, he said. Neither am I replied. Thursday morning, Patricia called with the final contract terms. Friday, I would sign the sale agreement. Monday, Nexora would announce the acquisition. By Tuesday, I'd be on a plane to Vancouver. Any second thoughts? Jacob asked Thursday evening. I looked around my empty apartment, thought about Tyler's entitled demands and Dad's violent control tactics. None whatsoever. Friday morning at 10 a.m., I signed the sale agreement. $42 million, transferred to my account within 4 hours. CenturyLoop Data, the company I'd built from nothing, officially belonged to Nexora Labs. My employees kept their jobs, my clients kept their contracts, and I kept my freedom. I didn't announce it, didn't post on social media or send farewell emails. Just signed the papers, shook hands with Patricia, and walked out of the conference room as a free man. By 3 p.m., I was at Charlotte Douglas International Airport with a one-way ticket to Vancouver. My phone had been buzzing all day with calls from Dad and Tyler, but I'd already switched carriers and changed my number. The first they'd hear about the sale would be Monday morning, when Nexora published the acquisition announcement in the business journals. By then, I'd be across the continent, legally protected by non-disclosure agreements and physically protected by 3,000 miles. From the departure gate, I sent one final email to my parents' address. CenturyLoop has been sold. I'm relocating permanently. Do not attempt to contact me through business channels or legal representatives. This decision is final. Eli. I scheduled it to send Monday at 9 a.m., exactly 1 hour before Nexora's press release. Then I deleted the email account, wiped my phone, and boarded the plane. Victoria, British Columbia turned out to be exactly what I needed. I bought a small house overlooking the harbor, close enough to downtown for coffee shops and restaurants, far enough from main roads for genuine quiet. For the first time in years, I woke up without checking my phone for crisis messages or client emergencies. The Nexora acquisition had gone smoothly. My former employees sent occasional updates through Jacob, who'd stayed on as a regional manager. CenturyLoop was thriving under new ownership, expanding into government contracts I'd never had resources to pursue. I started freelance consulting, taking projects that interested me rather than ones that paid the bills. No schedules, no employees, no family drama, just clean code and complicated problems. 6 months later, Jacob visited during a business trip to Vancouver. Over dinner, he mentioned that Tyler's artificial intelligence startup had folded after 3 months. Investors pulled out when they couldn't verify his technical claims, Jacob said. Apparently, he'd been exaggerating his programming experience. And my parents? Your father tried calling my office twice demanding information about your whereabouts. I told him client confidentiality prevented any discussion. I nodded and ordered another beer. The information felt distant, like hearing about strangers. A year later, I received a single forwarded email through my attorney. Mom, asking if I was safe and healthy. No mentions of Tyler's failures or Dad's regrets. No requests for reconciliation or explanations. I didn't reply. Some bridges once burned stay burned. The difference is choosing who strikes the match. These days, I wake up when I want, work on projects that matter, and answer only to myself. The view from my kitchen window shows mountains and water instead of traffic and obligations. Walking away from family had seemed impossible until it became necessary.